Blame the Puritans. It seems like that's sort of the thing that we say in any type of conversation about the negative aspects of American work life and American social life. You know, don't like how we're militaristic, black and white thinkers? Blame the Puritans. Don't like the Protestant work ethic? Blame the Puritans. Don't like our religiosity? Blame the Puritans. But it's more complex than that. And actually, the Puritans give what became the United States of America one of its earliest and greatest art forms, the gravestone. Oftentimes, Eurocentric liberals and Europeans will point to Roman pillars in DC, these sort of Timu Mediterranean scapes that we have in the United States, our colonial era architecture, and say, see, this is the earliest American art. What have they given us? Nothing. You go from Roman pillars to McDonald's. Congratulations. What did you give us? Excuse your mouth, shut your mouth. The Puritans and their gravestones have far more to do with the iconography and imagery of Americana than George and his wife's fancy little off-brand Timu pillars. Thank you. The gravestones are some of our earliest craftsman objects in the United States because the Puritans as a religious movement weren't materialistic people. Now, it's interesting that they established early American life, but they, weren't materialistic, considering how materialistic we became. I think that maybe the Puritan focus on the self's the self's relationship with God, then slowly transformed into the larger materialistic ideals of American life. But none of you came here for that. You came here for the gravestones and how cute they are and why they look that way. So let's have a discussion about it. Consider the simplicity of the gravestone to any of the gravestones that you might see in a Roman Catholic graveyard. The Puritan gravestone is simple. It tells you the information about the person, their name, birth date, death date, and then a simple illustration, usually of a skull, occasionally of a cherubic face with angel wings. Sometimes the skulls have angel wings as well, a kind of proto-surrealistic image. The Catholics want you to know that they lay there below the ground. They have giant statues of angels trying to breach the heaven, the sky, to speak to God and say, hello, this person you set here is here. But the Puritan keeps things simple, keeps things plain to the self. I look at the little cherubs and the little death's heads as sort of proto-emojis. With the emoji you write, had a bad day today, skull emoji. But with the Puritan gravestone, it becomes this larger than life thing. The small life dedicated to God is only given dynamic and epic proportions through its relation and its fealty to God. Death as a part of the final stage of life was extremely important to the Puritans. It's funny that they're often placed in total opposite to the sort of religious pageantry of the Catholics, but their final acceptance of death reminds me of a Catholic ethic. The Catholics lay their dead out in the open. There's no hiding it and covering the eyes like some Protestant sects do. Meanwhile, with the Puritans, they would have horses that were carrying the carts with the coffins, draped in these funerary costumes that had the same death heads that would then be on that dead person's skull. Death is a part of life. It is something you can't be separate from. It's very Dia de los Muertos from Mexico. It's very, larger than life, large scale. Later down the line, these skulls in the 1700s would be replaced by cherubs. It's sort of a cutification of the skull. We don't want anything morbid, but we still want that style. So you get these simplistic faces. These cherubs on the gravestones are far call from the sort of 20th century cute little baby Cupid doll style cherub that we know today. This isn't Cupid style cherub. They remind you of many other, non-religious stone carvings, geometric in their design, but they're still there to acknowledge the person below the ground having that one-to-one relation with God. Sometimes the faces on these gravestones don't even look like a skull or a cherub. They're kind of these bizarre, proto hamburger helper looking faces, little glove mitt faces. An assistant to God, the hand of God has literally become the entire person on the stone. Puritans were a very anti-art religion, and I think to us modern Americans, whenever we're told by Europeans that we don't have an artistic tradition, that's just a sign of decadence on their part. Art to the average European was a commodity good commissioned and created for that patron by the artist. And that goes for performance arts as well. Musicians like Beethoven and Mozart, all of those people had to be sponsored by a wealthy patron, more than likely a nobleman, if not royalty. In America, the wealthy patron, the nobleman, the royal, is replaced by a sort of business or mercantile patron. A man who is selling his own goods and wares must commission a specialty artist to create this good that will then become a quintessential piece of their life. It's not that art, must serve a purpose. Art must have a purpose in American life, or it is not worth anything. It is that art, because we did not have these royal, decadent factors to art making, the nobleman commissioning the art, we have this sort of lived experience with our art. Over time, we see that as the skull is replaced by the cherub, the granite stone of the gravestones become, over the course of the 1800s, replaced with that marble classic gravestone style that's still used today. It's a smoothing over and a sort of waspification of the Puritan style, but these style gravestones also appear sleeker. They're simpler and maybe not as stylistic, but it shows a kind of unified image coming over time, a Warholian image of the gravestone. These sleeker gravestones signify a less personal relationship with death. Gone are the days of the horses covered in skulls on their backs, on the blankets, driving the grave, the dead, to his final destination. But I can't help but have nostalgia and a love for these older gravestones, just with the simple skull, the names, the dates. There is a beauty in this simple Puritan waiting for the rapture to come, with his little hamburger helper emoji friend looking up to the sky and saying, "Here he is, God. Here he is, Lord. Take him."